Hello my snacks, welcome back! Today's stories are exploring certain types of entitled behavior, from the ludicrous to the, contestable. Let me know what you think of this story beginning 3 months ago. So for the sake of sanity and erasing as much fluff as possible, we'll skim through some of the unnecessary stuff. But oh man, if you're ready for a story where someone gets a second chance and then immediately realizes they don't deserve it, my ex-girlfriend wants to try again. My 26-year-old ex-girlfriend and I, a 27-year-old male, first got together 6 years ago, and from day one, we got on like two peas in a pod. Then after 2.5 years together, she fell pregnant. We had spoken about kids before, and we both wanted a family, not after just 2 years together. We spoke about it a lot and eventually decided to go for it. We agreed that even if our relationship doesn't last, our child's well-being would always come first. Right before the lockdown in 2020, 3 weeks before the due date, we welcomed a perfect little girl, and both of us were completely infatuated. It was a big adjustment, but our girl was an angel, and we settled into parenthood rather quickly. Everything was going great at first, but 3 months later, it all changed. I was working late when I got a text from my mother to tell me my girlfriend dropped our daughter off with her while she ran some errands, but 4 hours later, she hadn't returned and now she wasn't answering her phone. I called too, but she didn't answer me either. I got out of work, collected my daughter, and went home to find a note from my girlfriend. She said that she couldn't handle the stress of lockdown and the baby as well, and she just needed some time to clear her head. She also said not to call and that we would talk soon, but days turned to weeks, and with no contact from her or anyone else other than her sister, who visited her niece often, but never mentioned my girlfriend. Now fast forward 3 years, and my ex-girlfriend is slowly starting to reach out again. It was slow at first, liking photos of our girl on Instagram and the odd comment, but that was it until last week. She sent me a text saying that she had seen how well our daughter and I are doing and asking if we could meet up. Well, I was reluctant, but we agreed before our daughter was born that her well-being is what mattered the most, so reluctantly, I agreed to meet for a coffee so she can see our girl, but I'm having second thoughts. How do I forgive her for walking out on me and, more importantly, on our daughter? At the time, comments were straight to the punch. Get a lawyer, get that child support money, cancel the coffee date, do exactly what the lawyer says, you are owed child support, etc. This woman owes 3 years of life. Well, okay, wait, maybe not that dark, but you get what I mean. What she's done isn't exactly forgivable, let's be real. So it isn't until a month later they come back and let us know how that cafe date went. Well, as agreed, my ex and I met up a few days ago in a local cafe, and I got there early to try and work out what I was going to say to her after 3 years. While I hadn't mentioned it in my original post, I had no intention of bringing our daughter along. My ex had contact numbers of my family members, so she was with a coworker. And when my ex arrived, she was a little disappointed, but not all that surprised to see I was alone. The next few minutes mainly consisted of small talk before we eventually addressed the enormous elephant in the room, where she had been hiding for 3 years of our daughter's life. She admitted that she had suffered a lot with postpartum depression and she couldn't bear to show it in front of our girl. She acknowledged that leaving the way she did was wrong, but she wanted to be able to focus solely on herself while she got therapy. So I asked why it took her 3 years to resurface. I mean, she sent a text for our daughter's first birthday, but that was it. And she broke down, admitting that she was so scared of what I thought of her for disappearing. In a way, she was right to be scared, because while I could come to terms with being dumped, I was furious because she left our daughter. Throughout our conversation, I could tell she's grown a lot as a person over the last few years, which is something. We spoke for well over an hour, and when I finally got up to leave, she asked where we stood. I told her that I appreciate that she's been really trying to turn over a new leaf, but it's going to take time for me to fully move on. But as a show of good faith, I showed her a video of our girl. It's about 6 or 7 months old, but it's my favorite. It's her and one of my dad's cows mooing at each other. Just before I left, I got her phone number so we can maintain a bit of proper contact rather than through social media, and I agreed to send her a couple of photos of our girl. So I appreciate all the advice I got last time, and I'm wondering where my ex and I go from here. My hope is that we can coexist and maintain a healthy friendship for our daughter's sake, but after what happened before, it's hard to fully trust my ex. What do you guys think? Now, the OP also makes some quick side notes that they forgot to mention to the ex as well as to everyone else. Firstly, there is no interest to rekindle the relationship, at most just co-parenting, which is smart and understandable. Also, in his darkest hour, he considered putting her up for adoption. She was only about 9 months at the time. OP was mentally and emotionally drained, stressed out from work, and the love for her wasn't shining through as much. He was literally going through the online process one night until he looked at her in the cot. She looked back and looked on her little face, a cute little smile and her blue eyes shining like I was her whole world.
Let it never be said that the ability to be too cute can be considered manipulation.
I mean, why does it only work for babies? Why can't I avoid being fired if I look too cute? Instead, I have to get on my knees. It sucks. With this update, it can either be people's spite towards her for running away or skillful perception, but just because she's grown a lot as a person over the last few years, she's merely just showing that she seems like she has. Not to say she definitely hasn't, but you've only really seen her for over an hour after 3 years. Don't jump the shark too soon. And this person says this as a shark. So another month goes by and another update, this time things getting rather positive. We can just summarize this one, but basically, OP accompanies the ex to a therapy session where they talk about her relationship with her parents, this whole situation itself, and getting the therapist's advice and how to go from here in terms of introducing the daughter to the ex, etc. With the therapist offering them a free session himself regarding that situation. The daughter's also starting preschool in 2 weeks. No, wait, she started preschool 2 weeks ago. I can read. Already making friends and has been absolutely loving life. But of course, there's some things that the OP still needs to make clear with the ex. Such as someone brings up in the comments, does the ex know you don't want to get back with her? Well, the OP hasn't actually talked about this yet. So, it's possible the OP is done to string her along. But the real bombshell of this scenario comes less than 2 weeks ago in an update. The OP had no intention to do another update, as things were going well, but this recent turn of events has made them think otherwise. As we've been told, the reason X has returned is because she wants to come back into their life. She's turned over a new leaf. It was all her decision. Nothing influenced her to do so. Oh, wait, what's this? She called me yesterday morning asking if we could meet up since she had something important to tell me. I was off and kiddo was at preschool, so I had half an hour to meet her. Soon after I got there, she asked me about our girl and I told her she was doing well. Moments later, she broke down and told me that she wanted to tell me why she decided to reach out so that there weren't any secrets between us. She admitted that she had been seeing a guy. I don't know his name, so we'll call him Luke. For about 18 months. I was initially mad at the thought of her dating while I was raising our girl alone, but she was in tears, so I held back. She admitted that Luke had taken her to his nephew's christening and that she had a total breakdown at the sight of the baby and the thought of our daughter. She apparently got really drunk and broke down in tears before admitting to Luke that she had a child and that she had basically abandoned it. Apparently, she tried to distance herself from Luke after that, but he stuck with her, and his love and support inspired her to see a therapist and reach out to me. Now look, I would have run a mile if I was in his shoes, so he has my respect for helping her through that difficult time. I told her I was glad she told me and happy that she has someone that is so devoted before I left to collect kiddo, but now that it has fully sunk in, I can't wrap my head around it. How could she have gone off and dated someone else while I was left with our child? I've started to have second thoughts about her second chance, but since I'm not going to my therapist for another week, I thought I'd share it here to hopefully get some advice, because while I would like my daughter to know her mother, in some capacity anyway, I can't overlook the fact that she was dating someone else while I was raising our daughter by myself. So this obviously sets off a wave of theories that, hey, maybe she's also reaching out just so she can eventually get custody of the daughter, so that her and Luke can be a happy family and she can, start all over again like nothing ever happened. Ha ha ha. Just make the daughter hate the bio father, etc. Good game plan. To which the OP made another update after the therapy session, which was 4 days ago now, and basically discussing what he was afraid of, why this isn't something he needs to be afraid of, because he is pretty much the rock in their daughter's life, and that based on her circumstances, it would be very difficult for her to be able to groom your daughter into suddenly hating you. Which has left the OP to lean towards leaving their ex to live her own life and letting my daughter decide whether she wants to reach out when she's older and has all the facts. The facts being, her mama left us for 3 years and spent half of it with another man. Ooh, just love facts over feelings, don't ya? And hooray, a final message saying that they are now looking into the child support and legal action stuff. They do need to get sole custody sorted first and should have a family court hearing in the next week or two, so fingers crossed. I mean, wow. Imagine, after years, finally your ex reaching out, seeming like they want to return to things, fix things in the very least, but also finding out that half the time you were struggling, half the time you were considering ditching the daughter yourself, she was out living a bachelor's life. I mean, not exactly, but you know what I mean. She's dating someone else, having the fun new relationship, that excitement, that youth still that she clearly was, chasing after once more. But on the other side of things, while it can be admitted that she seemed to only have wanted to change because she felt guilty after being exposed to children, she is still wanting to change. And you gotta kind of pick and choose your battles here, I feel. You'd rather have the mother wanting to try and fix things as early as now rather than decades later or not at all. So what do you think though? Do you think that her genuine postpartum depression, which is a serious experience and I think pretty sure it's like a trauma or PTSD thing, I don't know the exact details, but it can heavily affect the woman's psyche. Even men too, actually. Yeah, let's normalize that. Men can get postpartum depression as well. I think it's a different term specifically, but it's the same experience. But yeah, let's also acknowledge that she went through something that suddenly shifted her entire brain chemistry. Does she not also deserve a second chance for something that was rather involuntary to her own bodily functions? I don't know. I'm trying to think of random words here and they're all just fluffing out. I went to the gym earlier today and I am dead inside. Okay. Over now to this freakish scenario in r/entitled people. Entitled X ghosted my friend, then demands a room in our house. Note, this isn't my ex, but my best friend's ex. She and I have been friends for years and live together now, and now we live with my parents who adore her like their own daughter. I got her permission to post this. My friend, 30 female, came from the US from Latin America at 19 as a student. She also started dating her ex, 29 male, after many years of hanging out with each other both during vacations and online. I knew them both since high school, and they seemed good together. She tried to convince him to move together a few years before their breakup. He was living with his parents who wanted him to leave. At this point, she had already finished college and had a job in the US that granted her a visa. He had quit college and worked part-time. From what I can gather, he didn't want to leave his parents' place because free food and no rent. So instead, she asked me if I wanted to move with her so we could afford a bigger place. I said yes, and we moved together, adopted a cat and a dog, and pretty much became Grace and Frankie. But around the start of the pandemic, things got bad for them. This is what I was told and what I saw. They never talked or hung out or anything. I was in a breakup at that time myself, so I wasn't really on top since I had my own issues, but my friend cried so much. She didn't even get a happy birthday. After a year of no contact, she assumed the relationship was over. She changed all her social media to single, which he could see, took him off her emergency contacts at work and at her doctor's, and just moved on with her life. Now this year, my stepdad's health has gone downhill and my mom needs help caring for him. She works full-time as a therapist. I work from home and my job is very flexible. So, I put in the idea of all of us living together and I'll care for my dad. Eventually, I'll care for my mom too. My mom loved the idea and asked my bestie if she wanted to move with us too so we could all be together, and also because at this point, I can't see myself not being in the same house as her. We've come to terms in being single ladies. Heck, we've joked that one of us should adopt and we've become parent or aunt dynamic. And now, the joke is more serious since I'm considering it and she's incredibly supportive. No, we're not dating. She's straight. I'm bi. We're just incredibly close after all the BS we've lived through together. And we found a perfect house. 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathrooms, enough space, a yard, everything we need. And we got it after a bunch of difficulties and arrangements. Now, since I don't have immediate plans for adopting yet, I have a ton of paperwork and years of planning ahead. But we made the extra room into our office and gaming hub. We both work at the same place, totally not on purpose. They were hiring and we both needed visas. And as proud first-time homeowners, we posted pictures. But then comes her ex, who by this point has been missing in action for 3 years, messages her saying he was so excited to move into the new house. She told him this was her house with me and my parents. And he said since they were a couple, she should kick me and my parents out so he could move in. I want to point out that my parents bought the house. We, friend and I, will pay them our parts over the years. And if she decides to move out, I'll finish paying and I'll buy her part out. This is all in paper and signed. So she obviously told him he was not moving with us and that he ghosted her, so there was no relationship. So he went on a tirade that he never broke up with her, that she was abandoning him, that she never cared about him, etc. I got mad, took the phone from her and told him he could live in a bear cave for all we care, but to leave my friend and our house alone. He went ballistic and began calling us some names, referring to the LGBTQ+ community. That would probably get this post flagged, so I'll leave it to your imagination. My friend started crying and I was absolutely done with him. I never thought he was abusive, but my friend confessed to me that this was not new. He always had issues with the two of us living together and accused her often of cheating on him with me. We ended the call and I told her she needed to block him for her own sanity's sake. She deserves so much better than this man-child. She got me to leave my abusive ex when I was in high school. She took me to the hospital when he beat me up and called my parents. My friend is family, and I'll be dead before I let some b-head with commitment issues make her suffer. But since then, he's gone on a major campaign in our friend group to say my friend abandoned him and left him homeless, since apparently he canceled his lease after he saw we bought a house. What? What a freaking idiot! He also claims we're lesbian Satanists that probably abuse our pets and are mooching off my parents. Most of my friends know the story and know my friend and I moved together at the first out of necessity, then we just don't see ourselves not living together. So yeah, my friend's ex is a nutcase, and if he ever gets close to her again, I will personally give him a free vasectomy. What? Why would you do that? Don't gift him with the ability to no longer have consequences for his actions of sleeping around. No. It's here where I've come across a new term. It was in a previous story I read as well, but just the Hobosexual needed a new home and then remembered the girlfriend he ghosted 3 years prior and decided it's time to move in. Others wonder if he was maybe mooching off someone else during that time and she booted him, so he started to look around for options. And in case you two are curious, the OP delivers, because she decided to do some sleuthing of her own. So, some people asked if our friends knew where the ex was hiding for 3 years, and I was actually curious. Since I was down for the count at work today, I had time to check with my friends and find out more. So apparently my bestie did ask them, but they didn't know. From what they tell me, he kinda got back into everyone's life in the last year or so. But he was part of the group because they were bestie's friends, not really his. I don't personally know many of his own friends, to be fair. But I did track down the ex's sister thanks to social media and poked her for info. She's very nice and always treated my bestie right. I told her what her brother did and her response was very interesting. Apparently, the ex was dating other girls until his parents decided to move outside the US. He's now living in a friend's couch. Yeah, in it. Not on it. He lives in it. Just lifts up the cushions and puts them on top of him. The last she heard was a couple of days past when they went out for coffee. He was saying he got this brand new house and was going to be moving in this week. As far as his sister knew, my bestie begged him to take her back and let her live in his house. So I did correct her and said that, no, Bestie is living with me and my parents in our new house. And her reaction was, of course he lied, and just thanked me for letting her know he was bullshmitting. So aside from that, I do want to report we are safe. He doesn't know where we live, and most people don't because we're not really ready to open Pandora's box and have friends come over. We also need time to figure out how or who we want in the know. Wrapping things up to say that nothing serious has happened to warrant police, but if anything is attempted or tried by this ex, they will be ready. Turns out the company is pretty supportive in these sort of issues, so that's nice to know. But my friends, it does not end there, because there is a second update, and apparently, stuff hits the fan. So this whole story started 2 weeks ago, and this update comes a week later. Just a quick revision on the events that have occurred. Sadly, eventually we had to adult and get much needed food. We went to Walmart in town together, and by some bad luck, we crossed paths with her ex. I wish all of it was just awkward glances and each on their way, but no. At first, he tried to talk to her. My friend said she didn't want to speak to him and didn't want him near her. I mostly reminded him I wanted to rip his spine and beat him to death with it. Sadly, that didn't deter him from following us around like the most obnoxious toilet paper stuck to shoe. We did our shopping and headed to the car with him still after us. I told my friend for her to get into the car and start the gear and lock it while I loaded the groceries. Her ex then decided to appeal to me to talk to my friend about taking him back. I don't know what power held me back from committing a felony, but I'm pretty sure I've earned a PhD in self-control. I told him, in no uncertain terms, where he could put his reconciliation and that if he kept following us, I will make sure his legs were out of the equation. So, I got in the car and my friend began to drive back when we noticed a car following us. And we knew it was following because the direction we were going was not usual. To rule out a possible neighbor, we actually did a full U-turn almost back to the store, stopped to get some fast food, ate in the parking lot, then headed again back home. And the same car was after us. Now, as much as I talk of violence, I have to admit I was terrified. So was my friend. Neither of us have a gun permit. Best we carry is a can of pepper spray. And we know her ex does have guns. So, yeah, we were not comfortable at that point. Instead, we headed past our neighborhood and, following the usual advice from TV, drove to a police station. Once in it, we did write a statement and I got scolded about the confrontation in Walmart's parking lot. Now I'm going to need some help in understanding this. Why would she get scolded about the confrontation? Like the police were reprimanding you for telling a guy to back off? I guess because you were threatening them with violence? I don't know. That sounds like a really stupid behavioral trait on the police's part.
You told a man to back off? How dare you? Gosh, you ladies, you ma'am are so rude. He was merely refusing your request to leave you alone. I'm just flabbergasted you would treat him such a way. I do not at all find it ironic that I am trying to discipline you about respect in this scenario.
Now, the reason we know it's her ex was because when we got home, she got a call from him in a new phone number saying, "I know where you live now." We immediately called the police. So, there's where we stand. Cops just left a few minutes ago, and my brother is going to be staying over for a few weeks until we get a restraining order and some sturdier locks. Now, also, I want to clarify a few things. A lot of people asked why originally my friend took a whole year of being ghosted to accept the relationship was over. While I get it, trust me, please understand that when my friend came to the US, she had no one. She's cut contact with her toxic family. She literally only had her ex. I moved into the US a year later, and also came alone at first. But my parents were able to become citizens and I had them. When her relationship died out, she lost not just her boyfriend, but his family, who pretty much were as close to her own family as she could get. It's not easy, and I personally can't imagine how lonely she felt. I could spend Christmas with my parents. She had no one for that first year. So, please, don't judge her on it, because she doesn't deserve it. It's not easy to be an immigrant when you have no place to return to. And in a final quick update, thanking everyone for their well wishes, and for now we have my brother using our couch. He's ex-military and has a gun permit, so we feel comfortable with him home. While there's no extra info about the ex's actions, Opie did message his sister to warn her that we will press charges if he keeps creeping on us. But oh my god, if you are curious how he somehow still figured out where she lived, turns out him approaching their car wasn't so much to ask Opie to reconcile with the friend, it was because we also did find an AirTag hidden under the car's bumper. It was immediately removed and turned in to the police. Look, not gonna lie, kinda not at all surprising that was his true intentions with approaching them in the car park. Anyway, friends, we might end things there. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you next time. I know this outro is kind of lackluster. I'm sorry, I'll do better next time. Love your face. Bye-bye.